The first announcement is, as you just heard the nice Zoom lady say, this meeting is recorded, and we put it up on the website afterwards, along with notes and things like that. So stay tuned for that. Before we get to that, though, okay, so there's actually quite a bit going on here in the next couple months that I want people to be aware of. First is coming up in March. There's two events that MiPA's at or participating at. One is the Rosemont Writers Festival. For those of you in the area of the Twin Cities, that's in Rosemont, Minnesota, an annual event, a nice little writers festival down there. The second event, which is perhaps bigger and more of note, is a joint networking and panel discussion between IBPA, MBPR, and those of us here in MIPA, which is being called Thrive in 2025. And that happens on Thursday evening, March 20th at Open Book. So both of these that I mentioned are actually in-person events. That one in particular is being sponsored by IBPA kind of as a run-up to PubU. So, and I'll put links into the chat afterwards so you can get to where the registration is. That event is free. Rosemont Writers Festival, I think it's free if you're attending as a writer. Okay, so that's March. So April then, and you probably seen already here if you're participating, our April speaker is actually here already. Dan Miller is going to be speaking. So he's, as you mentioned, with formerly known as Colorado Independent Publishers Association, and he is also operating as the copyright detective, a copyright specialist. So he's going to be talking about copyright in the age of AI, which is a tricky topic. So we're looking forward to that, Dan. And I know that's been, as we've talked about it over the last couple of months, that is an evolving, rapidly evolving topic. So that's going to be really fun. So that's April's event, April 8th. So it's the second Tuesday, like usual, in the evening, like this, virtual meeting on April 8th. And then May, we're not having a MIPA meeting because of IBPA's Publishing University, PubU, which is going to be in St. Paul, May 15th through 17th. And I do highly encourage anybody, well, anybody anywhere, but certainly those of you here in the Midwest. This is probably going to be the last time it'll be in the Midwest for a while, especially if we get that snowfall that I'm hoping for in mid-May. But it's a great opportunity. It's an exciting event. I'll put a link about our info on that. Just a reminder for everybody though, MIPA members do get an additional 20% discount off the rates. It's not an inexpensive conference, but it is a good deal given all that you get. So the discount codes and things like that are on the MIPA website. So I'll put a link about that in too. But okay, enough about me. So Julie here, Julie Trelstad is going to be our speaker tonight. And as you've seen from the advance emails and things, Julie is a publishing strategist who's coming to us tonight from White Plains, New York, although with Midwestern roots, so we like that. So she has been guiding authors in the ever-evolving publishing landscape as the head of U.S. Publishing for StreetLib and manager of the Marketing and Excerpt program at Publishers Marketplace Buzz Books. She bridges the gap between traditional and digital publishing. So I should also point out her career includes managing the Architectural Graphic Standards franchise and pioneering digital rights management strategies and founding her own press, Plain White Press, which makes a lot more sense when you realize she's coming to us from White Plains, New York. I got that, yes. A press which she sold to Fox Chapel Publishing in 2011. So, Julie has been there and done it all and seen seen much, which is why I was really excited when we talked earlier before about this topic for tonight, partnering for promotion. So again, reminder, this is being recorded, but we will take it from there. Before I turn it over to you though, Julie, how do you want to handle questions? Do you want people to put questions in the chat or interrupt
Um,
you or what?
do you have a procedure? I mean, I'd love to keep this informal. We have plenty of time, so if things are coming up, we can just continue. I'll sort of lay out what I'm going to be talking about. So,
Okay.
um, if maybe if you can moderate that for me, you
I
know.
can definitely do that. Yeah. All right. I'll watch things in the chat. But I will say if anybody has anything, a real pressing question, you can, use the raised hand feature and things like that. Otherwise, we'll circle back when we have breaks on things. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. All right, Julie, take it away.
So I'm going to share my presentation here. Um, And I'm going to warn all you copy editors.
I'm going to interrupt you just
Yeah.
to remind everybody else to also please mute your microphone so you don't interrupt Julie like I just did.
I just, speaking of your next presentation on AI, I created this presentation using a program called Gamma, and I'm all about the text, and it creates all these images for me. So don't even try to read the text in the images because it is not real. It is totally fake, as are all the
I
images.
just noticed that. I'm like, what language is that?
What
Okay.
is that? It's not Scandinavian. It's simply not a language. But I have to say, if you're interested in like, I really love this AI app because it makes making presentations really quick, even though it garbles the words. And you can hardly make a publishing presentation without there being words in it. So, at any rate, Paul, thank you for the introduction. Yes, I have definitely been there, done that. And I'm a publishing consultant. I work a lot with authors. Like, my main bread and butter actually is that I run a coaching group for authors who are building their careers. And I really love doing that work. So this like fits in well. But on the other hand, I'm also a consultant with, as I said, Publishers Market Buzz Books. So I get to know about the books that are coming out next year that are presented by the very large Big Five publishers. And at the same time, I also work with the authors over at StreetLib, which is an independent digital distributor that allows self-published and small published authors. And by the way, if you're IBPA member, StreetLib, just small little hook there, StreetLib does offer a special deal for anyone who's an independent publisher. But anyway, I want to get into this idea of why author education. And this is something I've come to over my career. As Paul mentioned before, I had my own publishing company, and I actually started that and was distributed by consortium, out of the Midwest in the early 2000s. And it just so happened that I finally had a big book that the retailers were excited. It was called Soccer for Moms, and we had huge Borders placements. So we put in a giant order of books, and I guess you know what happened to Borders, and that happened when they went out of business. So did my publishing company. And that was really rough. And, being a one-woman publishing company, I really thought that in sort of the newer world that authors were really going to help me survive. But in fact, I ended up really shouldering all the burden of myself, which was something I feel like as an independent publisher, you end up doing. The other thing that happened is like after I had my own publishing company, I ended up working as the digital rights director at Writers House, which was the largest and still is the largest only book publishing. They're bigger agencies, literary agencies, but they cover movies and television and multimedia rights. Writers House has specifically had 25 agents working on book publishing. And I was there specifically to run their self-publishing program, which agents really, don't want to say they're running. And also, I was supporting authors with their digital platforms. And I have to say, I love that work so much more. And a lot of times, I found myself with authors who really had no idea what to do. They were so excited about the big book deal they just signed with Random House. They've been told they had to have a website, they've been told they had to do social media, but then they were very lost. And so I ended up doing a lot of work with authors. And so after about 3 years, I decided to leave Writers House so I could continue that work independently. So let's see if I get this slide to go to the next one. Hang on. Oh, okay. My slide is not moving. Oh, is something. There we go. Um, So, what we all hope with our authors is that they're going to be the ones, they're going to reach out to their entire social media, they'll post on Facebook, they're going to be strategic with their social media, and they're going to be consistently engaging with their readers. They're very excited about going out to bookstores and having signings and so on. But in fact, what you find out is more often it's frantic last minute emails. Oh my God, I need books tomorrow. I'm doing this thing. Um, opportunities get missed, and authors often feel really overwhelmed by the process. And, as a publisher, you can get frustrated when you see things aren't being posted. And also, there's this sort of internet zeitgeist. If our authors are Googling, what do I need to do as an author? They are being fed information about what they should do as a self-published author, which I think is different from the strategy that they should be following if they're working with you. In fact, they should be a partner. So, yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, and there's sort of 4 steps to this process. I want you to figure out, like, first of all, like, and you may be a one-person publisher, in which case you are both the author and the publisher and assessing your own education needs. Um, Sort of think about 4 things we need to think about when we create an author education program. And by an author education program, what I mean by that is just a strategic set of communications that you send to your authors that help them help you and help themselves and help the other authors on your list market their books. And I really think done well, this can be a secret weapon for any publishing house because it's going to increase satisfaction. People are going to be happy to work with you because they're going to feel well taken care of. Everyone's going to sell more books. And you're going to attract more authors when these successful authors tell their friends that this is the best publisher on earth to work with. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about how you can assess the needs of your authors in your particular imprint and publishing company. I think it's really important that you talk to them before ever designing the program. Then overcoming barriers, and by barriers, like a lot of it has to do with attitude for the most part. I think it's mostly mindset. Authors sometimes are like, well, I signed with you. You're supposed to do the marketing, publisher, not me. Or sort of misinformation they've had, or illusions that they would be on a multi-city author tour in luxury hotels, everywhere they go. It's in the movies that way, isn't it? Um, Third, we're going to talk about the concept of literary citizenship, which is like one of my favorite ways to market books. It means authors help other authors, help publishers, and help the entire community. And finally, I'm going to tell you specifically about how to create these programs. And I'm going to talk about how you can do it like micro, mini, in just like a tiny little, no cost, little set of communications to something that's a lot more sophisticated, like setting up an online learning site. I was really excited to hear we had a meeting with Publishers Marketplace, and I was talking about these trends that I'm seeing with author education. And I did hear that Random House, Simon & Schuster, and Macmillan are all finally beginning author publishing programs. So if the big 5 are doing it, I think we can do it better as indies. So any questions on that roadmap? Go on. No. Oh, onward. There we go. Um, so what do authors really need? I think the first thing they really is very important is a clear understanding of their role in the process. They already understand that they are the creative, that they are the writer, that they produce content, but what is their role in marketing the book? That role needs to be defined. Secondly, they need some skills. Some of them know how to use Facebook, some of them don't. It's kind of surprising, different ages, different locations, different work experiences. Most of the marketing that authors are going to need to do in this day are digital. And some have great skills and some don't. Third, confidence. They need to be able to feel that they can do this, but also not intimidated by it. They need to feel like, make them excited about running this role. And finally, the community, the support system that you can put in place. Now, one thing, I've run these programs with literary agencies, and at first they said, oh, I don't want to do that because I really don't want our authors talking to each other. Now, that's kind of understandable in a literary agency because then they might talk about their deals, they might talk about their relationships with their agent, and agents really don't want that like to get out. But in fact, in my experience, absolutely none of that happened. And what happened is that authors bonded, they started helping each other. It was pretty amazing to watch. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, they just take off. But know what you might be worried about, and you can address these things by good education. All right. So let's start with how you do that assessment. Here are some questions, and actually, Paul, I can make this presentation available to folks later, but it'll also be in the recording.
That'd be awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. I sent you the PDF, so you can send that out. But if anyone wants to reach me, I'm Julie at paperbacksandpixels.com. Um, anyway, so these questions you should ask is like, number one, do a survey. Ask your questions how comfortable they are describing their book's audience. They should know exactly who they're writing for. And that could be something that comes from your publishing house. If you have an imprint, you may have a solid idea, and you can train them to say, these are our people. And these questions you can do face to face in an interview. You could even create a survey form that you put up when a new author signs on with you to ask these questions. So find out what marketing they've used before. They may be a business book author, they may be writing a book on marketing, they may be absolutely expert. They maybe once had a lemonade stand in their front yard. So you're going to get a good range. Ask them what that is. Um, Question three, ask them what they're worried about. And, it honestly might be that they're afraid of being a fool. They're maybe afraid of bad reviews. So I would certainly, make sure if you get that kind of feedback, include training on how to ignore Goodreads or how to turn it around or how the fact that, Goodreads it might be bad author. It's not the good thing to do. Are they afraid of that? Are they nervous of that? Are they nervous they don't have time? You can then address these concerns. Question four, how much time they can commit weekly. And I think that's a good question because you can actually give them a strategy and say, okay, every week I want you to produce 10 social media posts, or I would like you to be available at this time to do something. Or if they say they absolutely can't do any, but they want to pay somebody to do it, you might see if, they have a budget and, absolutely it's possible. And question five is what support would make them feel more confident? So as I said, it can be a conversation. Any other thoughts? Did I miss something that I should have asked them? All right. So in my experience, these are the different kinds of authors I've run into. And there's probably 20 more. But there's the reluctant promoter. There's they're especially young authors have really good social media skills. They can make graphics all day long. But they lack confidence. And the main problem they have is they do not want to promote themselves. They don't like to talk about themselves. They're a writer, they're an introvert. They are very skilled. They're terrific writers, good communicators. It's just like, ooh, not about me. The second one, and these are our dudes, right? That are eager but scattered. I've seen this too. They're like, tweet, my book, my cover reveal, and they'll like write about every single review they get, and they'll just be going crazy, but there's no strategy whatsoever. And maybe they make a lot of noise and they make it in the wrong place, and they just like it doesn't get noticed, or what they're doing, showing the picture of their cat at breakfast every morning isn't attracting the kind of attention they want. I actually at Writer's House had a number of people who like thought it was important to Instagram their breakfast. And it's just like and it was sort of part of the zeitgeist that you had to sort of share this you behind the scenes. And it doesn't work. Doesn't necessarily unless it's a book about breakfast, I suppose. And finally, the newbie. It may be somebody who really doesn't know about publishing basics, who needs a pretty strong mentorship hand. And in this too, I would include those who are new in social media and new using electronic marketing. Okay. All right. And so why do they not want to market? Just like I alluded to before, is like I don't want to self-promote. I wanted to go with a publisher, so I wouldn't have to self-promote and I wouldn't have to stand on a corner saying, "Hey, buy my book." And they also there's this imposter syndrome, like I'm not good enough, I'm not a book marketer, I'm not part of this. So they doubt their legitimacy to self-promote, and a little bit of education goes a long way. Also, if your new authors are seeing your existing authors or your backlist authors doing this, then it becomes, it becomes normal. It doesn't become something weird or awkward. They may not have time. I mean, you may not get around that, but they may not have time. And in this case, author education could be just like, here, we will give you social media posts and material about your cover and everything you need to do. And if you want, we can even like find you an assistant, or, if you want to contribute some money and that's more important, you can do it. People who just don't have the skills, they don't know how it works. Setting up an email newsletter or author website is just beyond them. Also, and I think this is probably true of a lot of literary authors, is this value disconnect. Like this whole idea is that I am an artist and this is commerce and this is not what I signed on for. Like it's way too commercial. And I've seen that too, that authors really fear compromising their artistic integrity by doing too much self-promotion. And there's some really good answers and good techniques where you can use your creativity to promote your book, which is, fantastic. And finally, and I think most important for all of you, is that they actually believe that marketing is the publisher's job. But I have to say that even in New York City publishing, that has not been true for at least 15 years. Ever since the dawn of Twitter, the onus of marketing has fallen on the author. Ever since the emergence of online retailers, now, even if we're selling books in barnesandnoble.com or bookstore.org, 85% of books are sold online. That means only 15% are sold in bookstores. You as a publisher have this amazing capacity to get to bookstores. You can send your reps, you can work with your distributor, but there's not a lot you can do to get books discovered online beyond your sort of circles of influence. So if the truth is, the reality is that authors making noise in the internet space and finding community and being part of the whole promotional ecosystem is really important, and it's going to be even more so. And you have to even look at the TikTok that has happened. Book Talk over the last 3 years has been the most effective book marketing strategy. And it is driven by authors. It is driven by individuals who maybe aren't authors, they're book talkers, influencers, but they're creatives who are individual people who are getting out message about the books. So it's like that's an illusion that you can probably pierce pretty quickly. But I think just the fact that you would have an author marketing education program would help, really change that belief. All right. So like I was saying, like flip beliefs. You maybe want to talk about marketing different, instead of telling authors just go sell your book, let's talk about connecting with your ideal readers. Instead of telling them to build their platform, which I tell you is just like utterly intimidating. Like, what am I supposed to go out with a nail and hammer and build some sort of tower that I have to stand on, or I have to build this website and this huge multiple, 20,000 follower Twitter? No, create your community. And I've seen authors who have like a newsletter with several hundred readers that have an enormous amount of influence. You tell them, go promote yourself. And they're like, what, me, who, what? Tell them instead to share their unique personalities. Tell them to build on that creativity that they brought to their book and find a way to bring it into their marketing, into their public conversation. There, instead of saying there's marketing requirements like in your contracts or in the welcome letter that you send them, tell them that we're going to give you opportunities to engage with your readers. Think about this language where it might be intimidating and how you can flip the scripts. All right.
So I'm going to jump in here, Julie, and
Yeah,
you're maybe going to get to this, but there is a question, Victoria
sure.
put in the chat, asking if you could give a few examples of author strategies that you felt worked really well.
I will be doing that. Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
at the end, there's open conversation and I can talk about them more
Okay.
specifically.
Hold her to
Um,
that, Victoria.
yeah, I've started to allude to them, but I will definitely talk about that specifically. Yeah. So, but a lot of it too, and this is what I tell authors, and I'm going to tell publishers the same thing. It's like, be creative. Like the most effective marketing strategies, honestly, are subversive. They are like, look at what other people are doing and think about how you can do it different or undermine it. So if I were to give you some kind of formula, what I would say is take any formula you see out there and make it your own, make it unique. So, what you want to do is really start small with this. Certain strategies, like, and this is where I start with all my clients, is around the platform, which I actually call a platform. And a lot of it is really simple. Give them a checklist. Make sure that your author bio is working on Amazon. Help them set up their Amazon author profile. Help, give them critique on their website. So, help them set up a newsletter, give them instructions to do that. Like really small things that they're maybe already doing, and offer some assistance to this. Um, and then you can build skills. So you might, like, a strategy again, might be like maybe you have an Instagram workshop and you invite all your authors, and maybe on a Saturday, everyone gets together and creates posts together. So you could bring in a social media specialist and say, look, we're going to come out and all of us are going to and leave the workshop with 30 of our own posts and 30 posts for all the other authors that you're going to promote. And one of the core strategies and the core advantages is that when you bring your authors together and get them promoting each other, that's a multiplier effect. That's exponential. Like if you have one author, five, and she said, and she said, and she said, and she said, if you get all of your authors promoting all of their books and you can get them working together and teach them some really basic skills, like a simple skill would be like, make sure that every one of your authors follows all of your other authors, suggest that they comment on each other's posts, suggest that they share each other's posts. And if they need education on that, provide it. It's like, it's really simple. And then if you as a publisher are creating marketing materials and have a social media presence, also tell all of your authors to amplify that. So, and you can expand your reach. You can connect, if you have your authors then connect to authors in the same genre from other publishers, your universe starts really expanding. And finally, show them how confident you are in their skills. Encourage them till they can do it. Call out your authors in public when they do a good job marketing their work. Hold them up as examples for others. So yeah, like I said, like my favorite strategy, and I know Jane Friedman talks about this, is what I call literary citizenship. And this actually comes out of research that I learned about while I was at Writer's House. And that research basically showed, actually maybe I could do a show of hands and you could, I don't know if you want to run a poll, Paul. Can you run a poll?
That might exceed my technical ability.
Okay, never mind.
Notice.
I will just ask you this hypothetical question. Okay, what is the number one reason? This is from the research we learned at Writer's House. What is the number one reason that anyone buys a book? And if anyone wants to venture a guess, you can just unmute and shout it out. Number one reason anyone buys fiction. We'll say fiction. Ah, the camera just came up to me. Um,
My guess would be recommended to them by somebody, by someone else, word of mouth, like it's a word of mouth. Someone they trust has recommended it to them.
that's the second reason. The number one reason anyone buys a book is because they have read a book by that author before. And so, what that actually means is that authors are always living in comparison to other authors. So we can't be Stephen King, but we can be compared to Stephen King. And that is true of every author everywhere and every bookseller everywhere, is that they are going to promote books using other people's books. And then we had another piece of research that told us that authors, fiction again, and I'll get to nonfiction in a sec, nonfiction, our fiction authors are hugely trusted for recommending good reads. So, like, if you want to know what book to read next, you can ask a librarian or you can ask an author. So any author can build their own platform entirely on recommending other people's books, which is amazing, right? So the strategy works really well. So the strategy of literary citizenship is absolutely built on the idea that authors support each other. You know, books, as you know, is a very unique industry. Books are cheap. It's not like supply and demand. So it's not like money is an inhibiting factor for somebody to pick up a book. More likely, time is an inhibiting factor. And the main hesitation for anyone not buying a book is like, oh my God, I don't have time to read that book. Or in my case, it might be, oh my God, if I bring in another book, my house might collapse. So, um, this idea that, so if a friend, and like Allison, you were saying, like the second most common is if somebody recommends a book, there's a lot of power for any author who has readers who've enjoyed that author's books to recommend someone else's book. You know, if Stephen King recommends a book, you know, that's the whole blurb. Ah, yay, I'm back in frame. The whole blurb and puff situation. So that's the idea, is that the strategy would be, how can you develop a program so your authors support each other? If you have a very small publishing company, how do you develop a program so the authors develop an ecosystem community among the authors who are in similar publishing companies? Because it doesn't mean this network just has to be within your own company. You know, how can you teach them to engage constructively with each other? And to engage in a way that supports them. Most authors are thrilled to talk about other people's books when they don't have to talk about their own. So it you know, works pretty well. You know, and then what you can do is offer helpful resources and how they can make this happen. I don't know if you know of the company Book Sweeps. It's run by Ryan Zatowski. He was also my intern at Writer's House. Book Sweeps is a company where if you have genre fiction, you can submit your book to a sweepstakes contest and use it to grow your email list. It also works on the same idea. 60 authors get together, they all offer a free book to the winner of the sweepstakes, and every one of those authors gets all the email addresses from everyone who entered the contest. Well, that came out of the idea when we were observing authors at Facebook, our high-profile authors on Facebook, names you would know, exchanging email lists with other authors on Facebook by running contests like this. So the second strategy I'd recommend is creating an author community. In other words, let them do it on their own, like with some guidance. And I'm doing this for StreetLib right now, and this is a free community. I'm actually working on creating an author education program for the distributor. And these are people who are like, a lot of them are just publishing a book and have very little knowledge of publishing. So we have this community where they can go and take my lessons on demand, and then they can ask questions. So, you know, these kind of questions, the community can be a place where you might post a calendar of all of the books publishing in the season. You can also create some transparency around what's happening in your publishing house. Like you could say, we're all going to the IBPA conference, and you can share information that you are learning as a publisher in this community that will help your authors. You can do behind the scenes. You can create, in a community setting, you can create a defined structure. You can create, like I'm doing for Writer's House, and we're using a platform called Circle. Circle allows us to create online courses and post them so that people who belong to the community can use them. Regular interaction. You could schedule a monthly, say, office hours, if you don't want to do any live instructions, where you can just take questions about marketing. You can also have a regularly scheduled co-working, which is very popular in the Zoom world, where you basically open up a Zoom room for maybe 2 hours on a Wednesday afternoon and say, we're all working on our marketing today. You know, here's the time you're setting aside. And then people can show up, ask questions, but also get the work done that they were maybe, you know, procrastinating about or didn't have time to do otherwise. And finally, the community is a great place where you can share success invite your community and your authors to share their wins, have them share photos of their book events, screenshots of great reviews, like anything that they're very proud of, to continually create sort of pride in the community. Like I said, I run a weekly coaching group for authors, and the first thing we always start with is like, let's toss some confetti, because, being an author is a lonely journey, and you have a lot of self-doubt, and being able to come into a community where you're going to be supported and celebrate yourself, it feels really good. And it shouldn't take a lot of time or resources out of your day to do something like this, if you're at scale. Okay, try to read these titles on these books. I like the graphics of this slide, but I just like, oh my God. Anyway, so the other thing you can do is another strategy is having a schedule of cross promotions. You could have a publishing house promotion that happens every single month of the year, or every quarter, or just every season, however you want to do it. But somebody who runs marketing within your organization can create all of the shared assets, can create the rules, the instructions. It can be a challenge, if you reach more people. It can be delivered in a newsletter. But if you actually say, okay, authors, this month we are all gonna do a Mother's Day bonanza, and we're gonna find some angle around mother in everyone's book, and we're just gonna blitz with this kind of promotion, for instance. So it can be a publisher-led promotion. Okay, and like I was saying, this can be anything as simple as, honestly, just a series. Sign a new author, they get a series of 10 emails, one at a time, that gives them a tiny little nugget of what they need to do to market their book. It could be that simple. You could even use ChatGPT to help you write these emails, and set it up so that every single new author gets one a week, and there you go. At the mid-level, what I'm suggesting is sort of a monthly workshop, which could just be something just like you're doing here, but do it within your own community. Make your authors feel included. The other thing you can do is have like a shared drive, or like a circle community where they can download checklists. You can create templates for graphics that they can use in social media, anything that you would want to share. And then at its most comprehensive, you could go bonanza, which is what the folks over at Simon & Schuster are planning to do, which includes like conferences and in-house meetings and, I don't know, lots of, sweatshirts with the name of the publishing company on it, full out instruction, online courses. It could be crazy. It doesn't need to be that. So, like I was saying, like, what should you budget for this? And I would say 0 to whatever. At the very least expensive. You don't even have to take your own time. You can assign one of your more successful authors to mentor your new ones. The second most expensive would be that email sequence or creating some templates in Canva. If you're doing it anyway, in-house, why not create assets that authors can also use? A little more expensive is like building a resource guide, and that means applying some of your staff time to developing this. You can also hire me. I can help you develop these materials, but this is something you could definitely do for yourself. If you just made time, maybe in those 2 hours every week when you're having your shared co-working space, you can silently be creating assets while everyone else is working on their marketing. And finally, the most expensive thing would be creating a community platform and any kind of in-person author events. And if you are a very local, very regional publisher, why not do in-person author events? Have a picnic if everyone is nearby and you're supporting your local authors. So if you were to say, wanted to have this rolled out in 90 days, I love 90-day plans. This is what you would do. Start next month, survey their authors, identify the needs. just try to figure out what the program's going to be, select your tools. And I'll share some tools in a sec. Month 2, create your content, build your resources, set up all your platforms. And month 3, you can roll out the program with a few select authors, try it out, and then roll it out. But it's an evergreen kind of thing because a lot of these resources you can create, you only have to do it once, and you can use it over and over again and evolve it when you have more authors. Creating a program like this today could make a huge difference in your publishing company 2 years down the road. It can really, help you improve your relationships with your authors. So we talked about tools a little bit, and so I wanted to give you my favorites, both a low budget version and a high budget version. You probably already have, if you just want to start an author program, Google Workspace, shared Google Docs, use Slack or Discord as a community chat. Loom is a video where you can do screen shares if you wanted to do instructions on how to do any marketing things. Canva, which will help you create graphics, and MailChimp or MailerLite or whatever email program you prefer. At a more advanced level, you can get an online teaching platform like a Kajabi or Circle, which is what we're doing. Use a fancier email program like ActiveCampaign that will put people in special sequences depending on who they are. You can use Airtable. We actually use that a lot with BuzzBooks to sort of track who's doing what. And finally, you can use the fancier version of Zoom so that you can hold regular webinars. But plain old Zoom will probably do for most independent publishers. I feel like I'm zooming through this, by the way. Does anybody have any questions? I'm just like, no? Okay. So yeah, a little case study that we've had, and this is just very back of the pocket. I did a project with Wattpad actually, who was teaching their authors how the ones who were selected to have their books published in paperback, what they would do for marketing. But very few of them they were all just like rogue little soldiers going out doing their own things. But pretty much none of them were participating with the publisher or in any coordinated fashion. And by the end of the 3-month program, we had everyone in their master, almost everyone, a few holdouts, were participating in regular marketing efforts. And it's amazing. This is all stuff. This is all promotion you get for your publishing company that you don't have to pay for. You just have to teach people to do it. And finally, and this is a brand new program, but they saw a 43% increase. But, what happened is that this was sort of a paperback rollout. They weren't, I don't know actually if that 43% correlates, but I'd have to say, I think it might, and it would be something you'd want to study. So if you're a small press, you might do monthly Zoomed workshops with your shared Google Docs. You could have a WhatsApp group or whatever. You don't have to have a chat group. We actually use Slack. Mid-sized publisher can have a dedicated portal. That's where you would have a circle. You could have quarterly events in person, all Zoomed on deck. And then if you're large, you might actually have an author relations team or an author relations person who is in charge of managing the efforts. Yeah, so things that might go wrong, many things. I don't know. I think the idea that authors will talk too much to each other is less of an issue. It could happen. But most likely problems would be if you tried something one size fits all and it doesn't help other authors. If there's information overload that you fire hose them, give them too much, too fast, like I feel like I'm doing with you. I hope not. And, not listening to feedback and improving, or quitting too soon because it's going to take some time to see some results. And finally, um, I'm just inviting you to start this tomorrow. And I realized I didn't tell you about nonfiction. So if you want to ask me about that question, you can ask me. So go out, survey your authors. You can do this tomorrow, the next week, very soon. Create just one resource that you'll share with your authors. And finally, connect two of your authors who would benefit from helping each other. And that's all I got.
There's at least one nod already in the chat for please addressing nonfiction, and I think several other people will
I
go.
just like that my brain just said, I forgot nonfiction. Let me stop sharing that.
Oh, this was awesome though, Julie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I
And
just
I am
think,
I am I am glad you shared the notes because we'll include the because there was a lot of detail, a lot of good detail in there. So we'll include
yes.
that.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I think author education can be a small press's secret weapon. Marketing is expensive. It doesn't work very well, but like the main tactic on marketing is just repetition of message. And the more people you have, like the more message gets shared. Oh, thank you, Amy.
And that was totally, just kind of a mind blown sort of thing for me when you talked about just have your authors like each other and follow each other on social media and comment on each other. I mean, you say that and it's like that's so obvious, but I don't think anybody's doing it. So that's such a good thing. But yeah, okay, so nonfiction. How would
Okay,
you
so
handle this nonfiction?
does anyone venture a guess? All right, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Not Yeah, nonfiction is actually data driven. Nonfiction is driven by people wanting to know more about the subject. The authority of the author is important, but whether somebody wants to read about the subject is your primary sales factor. So when you're marketing nonfiction, are you doing that with authors? Ideally, your press has a synergy of topics that all appeal to a similar reader. And what's really cool about that, instead of really sharing each other's books and stories, you can create an author education program around the core content of your publishing company. Like who was talking about at the beginning, like the Midwestern progressives. You can build marketing assets. Robbie, I think that was you. You can build marketing assets around the ideas that are in your books and little factoids about like progressives in the Midwest and use that as a social media message that your authors can all amplify.
I'll pop in here with a question, but I do encourage
Okay.
everybody to go ahead and put things in the chat or unmute if you want to just be bold and interrupt. But one thing I know that would affect a lot of our attendees, well, our attendees as well as our members, is how this changes when you're talking about being a self-publishing program.
Yeah, well, same thing. Like if self-publishing is a business model,
Hmm.
and I do think if I were to start a self-publishing program tomorrow, and I would still try to create a synergy of who's in my program. Like I would self-publish fantasy or I'd self-publish, local history. I would try to make sure that there's some synergy in my list because that way the authors can benefit from working with each other. If not, you can be a little more generic about it. It's a little harder to get that sort of uplift that you would need to have. I met a woman at a conference. I mean, it's very true in sort of the Christian self-publishing is that she has like 200 authors. And there's an enormous amount, but you can include in a self-publishing program, you could actually be more sophisticated about your author education and include it in the fee that people pay to work with you as a publisher. And you can even do things like offer one-on-one mentorship or small group classes. And again, have them pay for your time as an expert on the topic to teach them what they need to know.
Good point. And that's, I think, that idea of connecting also makes sense. As a self-published author, you should probably be connected with other people in your genre and not just following them, but interacting with them. Because, I mean, we all know that from social media. People interact with the people who interact with them. So,
Yeah, there's like a rule of 25, and I'm seeing like, what advice would you give to new authors? I mean, I like the first advice, like after you've got your like your mini platform, your home on the web, at least a minimum website, a minimum social media presence, you know, whatever that means. Because even now, I don't think it's important to have a as much of a full-blown website, just like one page. I'm an author. This is my book. Click here, buy it, or click here, sign up for my newsletter. And would be the first thing I would do after that would say, I'm going to identify 25 other authors who are 3 steps ahead of me, who have similar work, and I'm going to follow them all on social media, and I'm going to study the heck out of what they're doing. And then when I have an idea, then I'm going to jump in. But I would sort of have that the first step would be like sit on the sidelines and see what's happening. And then when you feel confident, then jump.
so Holly asks here, any advice specific to children's chapter books? So fiction, but obviously a little bit different age range.
Yeah, it's a little different, but there are wonderful communities. It's the same thing as communities of authors. Um, there's a lot of, you can network with teachers and parents. It would depend, it's like children's picture books can kind of go either way, fiction or nonfiction. The obvious way is to network with the people who would buy your book, librarians, teachers, parents. But the other way is like if you're writing about a particular area or concern, you can treat it like nonfiction and sort of, look at the world from that lens. If it's a book about nature, for instance, you can go nature forward into nature communities because there's always parents in those areas.
Nature specifically around children's experience, children's learn.
Children's experience in nature, yeah, you can sort of think about, yeah, children's books can go either. It really depends on what's your point of view.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then Jennifer asks about where memoir fits into this. So now we're talking
Oh,
nonfiction.
wow.
That
Also
changes
can go
things.
both
Yeah.
ways. But most of us aren't celebrities. So it's going to follow more than
Speak for
non.
yourself, Julie.
All right, fair. I'm not. But no, one. Yeah. My adventures in book publishing, actually, I have some good ones. But um, a memoir, again, is going to be more about the community who is interested in that personal story. But it can also be marketed like a novel. So you want to find people who love reading stories about people, and you want to find people, again, find 25 people online who talk about remarkable and inspiring stories that are related to your memoir. I think podcast might be an excellent place to look. Oh, thank you. This is IKEA, the pencil holders. It's an IKEA pegboard. My pen collection was out of hand.
So then Robbie asked about marketing assets you could produce. So I guess
Mhm.
getting into more specificity, some examples of things. Because I think the idea, and again, this may be my own ignorance showing, but the idea of producing essentially a digital folder of things that the authors can use that are ready to go, so it's easy for them. I mean, it sounds like a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a publisher account to say BookBrush, for instance, you could create the 3D cover images. You can create Canva templates for the way you want to do it. And you can even, you can deliver it, have your designer deliver that to them in a package along with their cover. I would make sure to give everyone a PDF of their tip sheet that they can take with them everywhere they go. You can give them postcards, you can give them bookmarks, you can give them Instagram size, you can give them Facebook size, you can create at Writer's House, we used to make the Facebook banners and the Twitter banners and the like all these different sizes. And now again, using Canva, you can kind of create one and it automatically resizes it and you have a whole set of what we would say digital assets to send along. And again, yeah, right. If you had a folder with all of the, with the graphics for all of the books being published by the publisher, and you had a calendar saying this book is coming out next month, people can grab those assets and promote each other's books just as easily as their own.
Very good point. The comment about the big five starting to do, this sort of stuff. And you mentioned even like Simon and Schuster, who I know has been very active in the author space. Uh,
Hmm.
but creating their own conferences and even their own, you know, publisher specific swag. That's an interesting
That's
change.
not expensive either. You could like make
Oh yeah,
baseball
yeah.
caps and t-shirts so that when people appear on Zoom, they have your publisher logo. You know, I saw Paul, you had your mug.
I do, yes.
Exactly. Give
I
everyone
have
a
my
branded
I
mug.
have my
So when they're
shirt
on
with me.
Zoom, they just. Um, yeah, that,
Let's see your mug, Paul.
Say that again.
Did you have a mug here?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I can't see my own picture right now, but it's my company, Illustrata. So it's my
Oh, okay.
Illustrata mug.
Okay.
No, and it's a perfect example. I mean, this is a one-off print-on-demand mug. So, I created it. I do a lot of things like that just to test stuff out. But yeah, I could actually make them for other people. And certainly publishers could do that or have your designer help you create something like that.
yeah. I just saw a question about how long to keep it up. And I would
Hmm.
say as long as humanly possible. So what I would train my authors, like my cats, which are untrainable, but what I would teach them is like how to post in advance. You can use, Facebook and Instagram, Meta, and then there's all kinds of software tools. Even Canva does it. You can make sure that you can post out months in advance, but also how to develop a marketing practice. So they're always doing a little bit. Like, I mean, one really simple thing, any of them, and you could create this, is an email signature with links to their book or their website. And then they can be passively marketing all the time. But I would say, ideally, you're going to have authors who come back to you with second books, that as long as a book is in print, it should be promoted because that books don't go bad. They just are last season's books. They're just backlist.
Well, and that's a huge idea, about building authors up in this way. So the good authors do come back to you as a publisher. Now you've invested all that marketing training, which now it starts paying off in dividends with subsequent books.
Yeah, they get good at it, and it should, and as I said, it needs to be a practice. And that's why I recommend, like, if you wanted to do co-working even once a month, to make sure that they sat down and actually did it, plotted out a month of marketing activities, whatever it is. Like people who are poets or essayists probably need to write longer form, or, need to be submitting to, whatever they need to do. It's different for different authors, and you can ask your authors, what they want to do, how they want to show up, how they want to be seen. A lot of them do want to be in live events, and so, one practice you have to learn is like, how do we like spend the time to research those and make the calls and send out the requests.
So a follow up on that question about how long to keep marketing. Um, what is the impact of age on, once it's published? Because I mean, I scrambled to publish my first book last year, and now it's almost a year old, and I was just immersed in work and trying to sell my house, and just really didn't do the kind of marketing I should have. Um,
Doesn't
so
matter. You can do it now.
yeah.
Because, like I think the whole, not I think I know that the whole concept of launch hard, launch fast, and then if it doesn't take off, it's done. That is an idea intrinsically tied to the gambling models of Penguin Random House and large publishers who have giant
Mm,
budgets, and they don't expect 60% of their books to even succeed.
mm.
And they will quit funding a book if it doesn't jump out of the gate, and they will quit promoting it. But independent publishers don't have to ever quit promoting their books. You can have like, this drip happening all the time. And actually, the bestseller model is interesting for a traditionally published book. It either it goes up and then it goes right down unless it takes off. There are a lot of self-published and independent books that kind of boom, because they finally found their readership, they finally found the right market. There's no reason to stop promoting any book. You can keep going. And, it just may mean that you probably won't get, mass media coverage because they only cover the books coming out in 3 months in the future. But that's probably the only place where that even matters anymore. Like books don't go, unless it's an annual almanac, books do not go bad.
Mm. And similarly, I mean, like there are certain festivals, they only want you to submit a book that was published
True.
in the last 12 months or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
But
true. But there's plenty of other promotion. And they're even like, I talked to the folks at Book Award Pro about this, had this same conversation. And she's like, no, like she recently had a book that was 25 years old. There was actually a book award for books over 20 years old that won an award and saw an entirely new life.
thank you.
Yeah, I would second all of that too, Robbie. I think it's especially with independent publishing, you're building your audience slowly anyhow. So I think there's far less of an expectation that books are, published this year or it's not worth considering. Um, I see that a lot in the books that I look at and things like that. I mean, obviously, yes, a new book has a built-in, interest because it was, just released. Okay, so that's a gimme that you get only once, but well, not even. I mean, you can have re-releases of books too and make just as much noise or more noise with a re-release. But yeah, I think Julie's point is really valid that it's not. I see very few people that are doing book launches now in that same way because of the expenses and because it's a long, slow burn stuff. So
Yeah, I think a lot of sort of the rules that we play by are rules that belong to publishers who have very different resources from us, and that it's worth questioning everything in terms of like, well, I can't, and yeah, you can. And there have been many successful stories, and a lot of the way we run publishing, the returns allowed in bookstores, that's all based on sort of these deep-pocketed organizations that can run their businesses very different than indies can. So I would charge you to be more creative.
Can I ask a question out loud? Just because I'm too lazy to write it. Um, I've been invited to submit my manuscript and a proposal to Learner
Okay.
Children's, which I'm pretty excited about, but I've never done a proposal. But I'm wondering if somewhere in that letter or proposal, should I address the subject of author promotion and say that I've done a lot of public speaking, I have a wide network, I'm online, blah, 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 stuff like that. Is this the right
Definitely.
time, appropriate time to tell them that?
Absolutely. And, especially if you can couch it specifically how it's going to help them sell their books, but you can also, throw yourself out there and like, I will support all of your other authors too. And mention the other books that they publish that you love and tell them, what a great literary citizen you're going to be.